I just wanted to learn, said Urza softly. I just wanted to build my devices. The Brothers' War, page 521. It's no exaggeration to say that much of the pre-Mending story revolved around the exploits of one man, a man so determined to reach victory that he would sacrifice anything, go to any length to achieve it. Urza's drive was an unrelenting force. When he had his focus, there was little that could dissuade him, regardless of the consequences. And for a man of his position, those consequences echoed far, not just across his home world of Dominaria, but throughout the rest of the vast multiverse as well. His 4,000-year story is one of war, madness, pain, betrayal, and, in the end, triumph. But here, on the ancient Dominarian continent of Terisier, is where that story begins. Urza was born on the first day of what historians would later call Year Zero of the Argivian reckoning calendar. He was the firstborn son of a noble family of Argive. Though they were occasionally thought to be twins, Urza's brother Mishra would actually be born 12 months later, on the very last day of that same year. The brothers did not have a particularly happy childhood. Their mother died while both were infants, and their father would remarry shortly after. Their stepmother was indifferent and disdainful to both children, but they did not suffer under her for long. By the time the boys were 10 years old, their father had become ill and sent both off to an old friend, the elderly archaeologist Tokasia, who would raise and tutor the boys. Under Tokasia's guidance, the brothers learned of the rich trove of history buried beneath their feet. They learned of the ancient Thran civilization, and each of them became skilled with the art of artifice. Over time, the two brothers would grow distant. Mishra came to enjoy the social aspects of the excavation, while Urza retreated to solitude in studying the various artifacts they discovered. On the subject of the Thran, both brothers frequently argued, having different ideas of who these ancient people were and what happened to them. Regardless of their differences, together the brothers were of great aid to the excavation team. They found a great many ancient sites over the years and discovered several wondrous artifacts, such as the ancient flying ornithopter and the Su-Chi constructs. After studying the ancient Thran sites for some time, Urza came to realize that the Thran had left instructions throughout the ruins, instructions that all appeared to be pointing in one direction, the center of the Thran civilization. The brothers and Tokasia took off by air in their ornithopter, eventually coming to discover a hidden city, a ruin that you could only easily spot from above. Urza came to name these ruins after the ancient Argivian word for secret, koilos, and together with Mishra and Tokasia, he set out to explore as much as he could. After initially being attacked by a massive rock on their approach, the trio would make their way to the center, the very heart of the city. Here they discovered an ancient power stone, resting undisturbed for centuries. This power stone seemed to call out to the brothers, and they briefly argued over what to do with it. Though neither brother would admit to fault, they had each grabbed at the stone, an act that cemented their destinies. An explosion rocked the room, and when the dust had settled, each brother was holding one half of the power stone, and each of them had experienced a different vision of the ancient Thran. The explosion also awoke the ancient Su-Chi guardians. Urza initially tried to use his half of the stone to hold them off, but learned that it only empowered them. Mishra's stone, however, seemed to weaken the constructs. As they battled their way out of the ancient city, the brothers continued to squabble with one another over the stones, which they came to name the Might Stone and Weak Stone. Both wanted to make the two stones whole again, but neither was willing to give up their half. This animosity toward one another would over time grow to a boiling point until, one day, they would each try to use their stone on the other. Tokasia, attempting to stop their feud, would step between them and perish under the energies of the assault. With Tokasia's death, Urza and Mishra went their separate ways, but she would not be the last casualty of their ongoing conflict. Sometime later, Urza would make his way to the city of Krug. After several months under the employment of a clockmaker, Urza learned of a contest set down by the city's warlord. The warlord declared that any man who could move a massive jade statue from one end of the courtyard to the other would be gifted his daughter, Kayla bin Krug's hand in marriage. Urza was initially disinterested in this contest, until he learned that an old Thran artifact, the Jaloom Tome, was included in the dowry. Over the next 2 months, Urza and the clockmaker, Arasko, would construct a golem capable of lifting the jade statue. The warlord was initially furious that Urza would use a machine instead of his own might, but quickly came to desire the artificer's genius mind for his military. As such, Urza was wed to the warlord's daughter and named High Artificer of Krug. Though Kayla was enamored with Urza, he had little interest in her, even leaving their bed on the night of their wedding to read the Jaloom Tome. Rarely would Urza show interest in others in his new position, except for those who proved themselves talented, like his apprentice, Tanos. Time wore on, and Urza would continue to produce fantastic machines for the warlord of Krug. He would even establish a school of artifice, taking on several students, but his time in the workshop was at an end, as war was on the horizon. Unbeknownst to Urza, the warlord had plans to expand and conquer once again. During a diplomatic conference with the people of the desert, the Phalangi, Urza was shocked to once again encounter his brother. The two brothers greeted one another, warmly even, as they had not seen one another in years. Urza learned that Mishra was now the chief wizard to the new Kadir, the leader of the Phalangi people, and had discovered a massive dragon engine beneath the desert sands. Like his brother, Mishra even had an apprentice, the talented young Ashnod. Their reunion would be cut short, however, as the warlord of Krug enacted an ambush on the Phalangi people, attacking them with ornithopters. In his arrogance, he lost his life, and Urza now had to return to Krug to prepare for the worst. When Mishra came to Krug, he did so with a simple demand. Urza must finally hand over the Might Stone. If he did, war could be averted. While Kayla, now in command of the city, was willing to hand over what she saw as a pointless rock, Urza was unwilling to comply, stubbornly refusing to hand to Mishra what they had argued over years prior. The only path forward for Urza was war. What followed thereafter was perhaps the harshest conflict that Dominaria had ever experienced. The two brothers assailed each other with armies of artificial monstrosities, devastating the land and causing suffering on a scale that is difficult to imagine. Urza and Mishra would constantly design counters to each other's inventions. Their drive to defeat one another was matchless, and no end to the conflict was in sight. The brothers each erected factories that would produce legions of steel soldiers, armies that would battle against one another without need to rest. Mishra's factories would tirelessly produce workers and dragon engines, and many more types of artificial beasts. Urza's facilities were more efficient, designed to use only what was needed. But for this war, a great deal was needed. No matter how careful either brother was, the drain on the natural resources of Tertiaire was great. And on both sides of the war, a darker power was at work. All those years ago, when the brothers had first split the Power Stone in two, they had inadvertently opened up an ancient planar portal. This portal connected to one of the most horrifying locations in the multiverse, the world of oil and machines, Phyrexia, and through this rift stepped the metal demon, Gix. Gix would infiltrate both sides of the conflict, influencing the war whenever it suited him to cause more devastation and to orchestrate the downfall of both brothers. As Urza and Mishra battled, across the land people had taken up one of three stances in regard to the war, siding with either brother or against both. Adherents to this, the third path, took up magic designed to counter and dismantle artifice, though it did them little good. For decades, this war would ravage the continent of Tertiaire. As the years passed by, Urza and Kayla had a son, Harbin, who grew up only knowing war. As he searched for an end to the conflict, Harbin had discovered the island of Argoth off the mainland. The island was lush with lumber and metals, which Urza sought to use to finally bring an end to his brother. To his surprise, Mishra had also discovered the island. In addition, the elves of Argoth, under their elemental queen Titania, fought viciously to drive both brothers from their island. It was here, on Argoth, that the final battle between the brothers had arrived, and for all present, it could have just as easily been the end of the world. Gix seized the chance to kill both brothers and dominated their machines, turning them against their allies and causing great confusion. Urza and Mishra battled each other and their own machines, and it was here that Urza learned a shocking truth. Mishra, perhaps under the influence of Phyrexia, had transformed much of his body into a horrifying machine. Shocked by what he beheld, Urza pushed his brother away. His apprentice, Tanos, caught up with him here, handing him an ancient artifact, the Golgothian Silex. The Silex had been discovered some years prior by Loran, an archaeologist who knew both brothers in their youth. She had been captured by Ashnod, who took the artifact and hid it away before Loran was rescued by her husband, Felden. Ashnod, who realized that her master had gone too far in the war, passed the Silex to Tanos, and now it lay in Urza's hands. For the first time in his life, Urza truly reflected on the scope of the damage his actions had caused. He knew the devastation he brought to Dominaria, and the consequences of his arrogance weighed down upon him. The elderly Urza told his apprentice and friend Tanos to seek shelter, then called upon all the mana he had left. As the half-machine Mishra approached, Urza allowed his magic and memories to pour into the Silex. In an instant, a bright light blinded those for miles around. In an instant, a blast destroyed most of the island of Argoth, causing it to sink beneath the waves. In an instant, Urza brought an end to the war, a war he had been fighting his entire life. This same moment marked the end of Urza's mortal existence. As destruction echoed across Dominaria, Urza's spark ignited, and he would ascend as a planeswalker. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please consider leaving a like or sharing this video with your friends. If you subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell, you'll be alerted whenever I upload new videos. If you have a topic you'd like me to discuss, feel free to let me know in the comments section below. Finally, likes, comments, and subscribers all go a long way to help my channel grow. But if you wish to support me directly, I've created a Patreon for this channel. If you like what I do and want to help me out, go ahead and check it out. A link to it will be in the description below. Thank you very much again, and have a great day.